Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gitbag the Great with me, Gitbag the Great. Sorry about the potato quality of the camera here. I'm unfortunately filming this on my laptop's inbuilt camera, so the quality isn't going to be super amazing. And sorry about not uploading recently. Unfortunately, my computer has just decided to stop processing video game footage, so I'm going to have to find some way of getting some other type of software to process video game footage so that I can get some more videos to do with video games to you guys, so that I can then continue on just generally uploading and finally finish that Dawn of War 2 playthrough. But to tide you guys over, I thought I might record a few videos like this in the coming weeks, and they hopefully shouldn't be too hard to produce, which is good because I'm in the midst of doing my revision for my final exam for my third year of uni. But taking into account that a lot of revision does require some rest breaks, I thought a few days ago that I'd go out to see a film with one of my mates, and we went to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I was a bit precautious about seeing this film because the last couple of Marvel Cinematic Universe films I had seen hadn't really lived up to the hype of their previous installments, with perhaps exception to, I'd say, Doctor Strange and the majority of Ant-Man. Those two films out of the last, say, half a dozen that I saw, genuinely I thought were better than I thought they were going to be. I do try to go into films these days with kind of like an expectation that there'll be about a 5 out of 10 or so, just a bang average, run-of-the-mill, straight down the middle sort of kind of quality film. And I kind of went in with that attitude towards the last couple of MCU films I saw, again, like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. And with those two cases, I was very much satisfied. But then there was also cases like Iron Man 3 and also the last Avengers film that I was a little bit disappointed by. I wouldn't say they were below average, they were slightly above average, but they weren't as good as I think objectively they could have been. However, I was very pleasantly surprised with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because the thing is, I think that there have been a lot of problems with majority, or mainly the sequels in the MCU films, whether that be Iron Man 2, which is probably the weakest out of the MCU films so far, or Avengers 2, all just not really living up to the gravitas and the sort of magnificence of the original films that those particular pictures are based off of. And maybe that's because when these individual MCU mini-series of films first started off, there was more, emphasis and sort of expectation and not really knowing what to sort of expect when these films came out, like say when Iron Man came out in 2008, or Avengers came out in 2012, or Thor came out in 2011. And I think that's probably part of the reason why why Marvel and Disney have been releasing more sort of starting films in the last couple of years in the form of Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and things like that. I think that's probably the reason why we've been seeing less sequels in the last, say, two to 3 years or so. And so that's kind of part of the reason why I'm so surprised that I actually did end up liking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 so much, because I've been disappointed in the past with films like Avengers 2, Iron Man 2 and 3 and things like that. It's genuinely a really good film, and I would argue definitely on par, and if not better in some places, not entirely, but in some places, than the original. The original, I think, definitely got a hint of the humour a lot better, and I do also think the acting was slightly better in the original as well. Not to mention, I think the CGI was also somewhat more believable. I mean, it's a space odyssey, so with the CGI, even more so than, say, something like Ant-Man or Iron Man, you'd have to have a bit more suspense of disbelief in a sci-fi odyssey travel adventure sort of film like Guardians of the Galaxy, because, well, it's a bit out of this world, if you'll excuse the pun. And so I've never really put the CGI being super realistic as my main importance with the Guardians of the Galaxy films in particular, or the Doctor Strange film either, because again, that's not based off of sci-fi, but it is based off of magic and fantasy, so it's you know, same kind of expectation for me personally with the CGI in that film. However, the CGI in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is probably one of probably only three really like major gripes I have with the film. It's a little bit iffy in some places, and it's not always apparent, but you can tell in certain places. Particularly there's this scene, a certain point through the film where Rocket Raccoon is blasting these guys up into the air with shockwave mines in the middle of a forest while trying to fight them off, and it's a fun scene, it's a really cool scene, but you can kind of tell it is CGI because it kind of shows, just to say. I won't spoil it too much, and I can't really describe it much in words without showing footage, but if you see the film you'll probably know what I mean when you see that scene. It's a good scene, don't get me wrong, but a bit iffy in terms of the CGI. The other main gripe I would have in regards to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 would be some of the humour didn't really stick so well. Some of the humour just kind of seemed a bit sort of crowbarred in, which is a complaint I've heard a lot of people, including some of my best friends, make about some of the more recent MCU films, particularly in regards to films like, say, the second Avengers film or Doctor Strange, where the humour seemed to just be kind of sort of put in there just for the sake of it, whereas like in, say, Iron Man 1 and the first Avengers and Ant-Man, it seemed to be, you know, part of like the character's ethos and just part of the story, and just kind of naturally sort of slid in there. I mean, maybe that's part of, you know, the first time we saw those films, it was like the first time we'd seen that kind of film in that kind of genre in that kind of way, and so maybe it's like the first time sort of expectations were a bit different in that case. But I don't know, compared to the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, the humour in this one really wasn't up to par. There are some good jokes, but there are other jokes like, say, the one where they just keep on hammering in the sort of sexual tension between Gamora and Star-Lord as kind of this humorous joke of a point, when in reality I think they'd probably make a nice couple, really, to be honest. They seem to have a lot of chemistry on screen, and the two actors playing them, Chris Pratt and oh god, I forget the woman's name terribly, they seem to, you know, play very well off of each other on screen. But you know, it's kind of cases like that with immature sort of humour that didn't really gel properly for me. The only other major gripe I would have would be the aspect of a certain story point very late on in the film, where it's kind of revealed what the big bad guy's main secret is. It's kind of, it is well put in, but the bit of dialogue leading up to it isn't really that well emphasised. They could have put it across a little bit clearly with maybe just one or two more extra lines of dialogue. Apart from that, though, I think the film is very well structured overall, story-wise and in terms of action and narrative and all that. I think the action in this one is arguably probably better than in the original, and the final battle in this one just blows the one in the first one out of the water, except for in regards to the CGI. I'll grant you that. I'll probably make a follow-up to this video in some point in the future so that I can go more into why I like this film, but I just kind of wanted to make this film first just to give a bit of background to my thoughts about it, and also to get across some of my criticisms as well. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it was pretty bad in quality, but I don't have the best equipment at the moment. And if you like this video, leave a like, comment, share and subscribe, and check out my other social media platforms in the video description below. I've been Gitbag the Great, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield. Bye bye for now.